of revenue we currently get from our oil resources are too low. We are not tracking the amount of oil that we are generating and are being shortchanged. The oil resources we have can make this country a real middle income in 5 to 10 years. The oil revenue or resources we have can replace all the donor support that we go out to beg for all the times. And if we manage them properly, we will not go out to borrow monies from other countries because the oil is here. But the last time at the IEA, I said it, that it is not with us. We are only a country that we call we have oil, but the oil is in the hands of the foreigners. And we believe if we as leaders cannot retrieve in the national anthem, we pledge to uphold and defend the nation, but yet we have sold it out to the people leaving the nation with nothing.
Thank you very much. We now move on for a response from the NPP, Nana Akufo-Addo.
Madam, once again, thank you on this most critical of subjects. I think it's important that all of us recognize that the situation before we found oil is substantially different from the situation after we have found oil. The agreements that were made to entice people to bring their capital to find the oil were at a time when the oil wasn't clear whether we had oil or not. Today, as a result of the find, we know that our shores have the hydrocarbon resources that will allow us to be able now to take a very much more forward position. So the mere fact that the original agreements tended to be favoring the investor, in my view, was the correct strategy. We needed that investor to come, make the investment, and it was done. And the result of it was the Jubilee fields were discovered under Kufuor's watch. Question number 2, how do we treat this new find? Are we going to treat the new oil and gas resources like we have treated our other natural resources? We continue to export them in their raw form and are happy with that? The revenues from the export of the oil? No. Our view is that the discoveries and the revenues that are coming from it give us an opportunity to use it to transform our economy and transform our nation. And therefore, the whole process of industrialization and value addition will be an integral part of how we deal with the revenues and the resources that we now have. Thirdly, we are not going to be able to get the best value from these if critical decisions, for one reason or another, internecine struggles within the ruling party, are delayed. We saw the delay over the linkage of our gas resources to the gas plant, largely because for years there was a tug of war as to who should be responsible for it. Mercifully, that has now been resolved, many years too late, but better later than never. Fourthly, clearly the most equitable manner in which our nation and our people will benefit from the oil revenues is to ensure that they are used on the two most critical aspects of our national life, our education and our health care. If at the time when the oil resources run out of Ghana, we have a transformed Ghanaian population, educated, which has access to good health care, we now have the basis to sustain the development of our nation, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, but for generations to come. Our commitment to free secondary education is not about winning the next election. It's about preparing the country for the next generation.
Thank you so much. We now move on to NDC.
Thank you very much. I'll start by saluting the PNDC government and the GNPC. The GNPC was formed by the PNDC. And I think that step at the time is what has brought us where we are today. The GNPC has done a phenomenal job over time to discover the initial oil wells that we found and the recent discoveries that we have made. Under President Kufuor's watch, Jubilee was found. And since then, most people don't know it. Since 2009 under President Atamil's watch, 16 new discoveries have been made. And that's phenomenal. And so it is important that, one, we strengthen negotiation of what we get as a country out of our oil resource, but most importantly, put in place the legislative environment that makes the industry predictable and attractive to investors who have the technology and the capital to put into it. And again, this question often is a bit inconveniencing to me. It says, what will you do? We are doing already. I am doing already. We have put in the legislative framework. We passed the Petroleum Revenue Management Bill. We passed the bill that set up the Petroleum Commission. We have approved in Cabinet the Exploration and Production Bill. It's currently awaiting parliamentary approval. And I'll appeal to our members of parliament to look at it quickly and let it pass so that we can have that bill in place. Because then that covers the various steps of the oil industry. That is production. Then you have regulation, which is the Petroleum Commission. Then you have how revenues are used, revenue management, which is the Petroleum Revenue Management. The last piece of legislation, which is still undergoing stakeholder consultation, is the Local Content Bill, to increase the capacity of Ghanaians to be able to benefit and participate in the oil and gas industry. It doesn't pay to have such a God-blessed resource and just have foreigners come and take it away without any benefit to your people. And so we're going to pass the Local Content Bill to justify and reserve some aspects of the oil industry to Ghanaians, and one, to encourage the foreign companies that are involved in oil exploration and production to engage Ghanaians to work for them. But all in all, it is how we establish the base that utilizes this oil and gas to propel Ghana's development forward. And we have elaborate plans to do that. We are processing, putting in the gas pipelines, putting in the processing plants, which will supply gas to our thermal production. We all have seen what has happened with the West African gas line when we lost gas from Nigeria. It behoves on us to have our own supply of gas so that we will not fall into this situation again in the future. But we have put in place a blueprint for the midstream and downstream petroleum industry, and that is going to change the face of this country. It's going to create jobs. It's going to provide the needed investment and capital that we need to build our infrastructure and move this nation to the next level.
Gentlemen, we're still talking about natural resources, science and technology. I want to ask a question about science and technology. I will start with you, Mr. Hassan Ayariga. And you know, science and technology is at the core of development the world over. Question: what are your plans to place science and technology at the core of Ghana's economic development?
To be very honest, we don't hear you very well from this side.
Let me take the question again. Science and technology is at the core of development the world over. The question is, what are your plans to place science and technology at the core of Ghana's economic development?
Thank you now. Thank you very much. I believe my brother or my father, Nana, has been talking about the free, please, thank you. Has been talking about the free educational senior high school system. Now, let's not be worried about the free senior high school. Let us be worried about the quality of education that we want to deliver to our people. Now, I think that what we need to do is to change the curriculum of education to start with science and technology. The University of Science and Technology in Kumasi is there to provide sciences and equip our students on technological-based subjects. Today, if you go to the University of Science and Technology, even the lift in the building is spoiled. And they are responsible for such courses. Now, the question is, how do we get these schools to do or to give proper education regarding science and technology? The last time I made mention that let's change and create and be more creative in the kind of courses that we give to our students so that they can be more technological and innovative and creative. So that at the end of the day, Ghana will produce graduates that are not avoidable, but absorbable. In that sense, we are able to say in our national development policy, we need to have 200,000 students that will graduate from the University of Science and Tech doing sciences. The gentleman we call Asafo Kantanka has been able to produce and manufacture cars in Ghana. Both the NPP and the NDC government have not been able to resource this gentleman to be able to employ more students and teach them the knowledge that he has regarding science and technology. At least, it doesn't mean that you must come from the school before you can teach technology. Some people have it from wisdom and knowledge, but they are not students. Go to magazine. We have many students, many people there that can manufacture and build cars, but because they are not in the classroom, we have ignored them. So our government will re-emphasize and change the curriculum of education rather than free, and make sure that we are more creative and innovative in delivering our educational sector and sciences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayaga. Nana Akufo-Addo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kojo. Question after question tells us about the significance of this debate and the importance of these questions to our future. I think we have to start at the basic. First of all, we need to look again at the curricula we have both at the primary and the secondary level and infuse those curricula with a greater emphasis on science and technology, training, and knowledge. That's the first thing. The second, we need the teachers that will teach our children about science and technology. The initiative that Kufuor began, that of the 38 training colleges of education we have in our country, 15 of them were specifically dedicated to the teaching, the output of teachers mired in science and technology, is one that I will build on, create more, and expand the capacity of our training colleges to produce teachers in science and technology. Thirdly, go around the schools, and I've been doing that the last 2.5 years. Everywhere I go, I try to visit a school to see for myself what's on the ground. Virtually all of them have no laboratory equipment to speak of. How are you going to develop science and technology in our schools if the schools themselves are bereft of the basic equipments that will introduce people to science and technology? So that's clearly a major gap that we need to fill, and fill urgently. Again, our tertiary institutions, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, the University of Mines and Allied Technology in Takwa, are the institutions that are meant to focus on producing the engineers and the scientists and the technologists that we need. I believe there's a great need for us to refocus these institutions on this core mandate of producing engineers and technologists. My understanding was that the original vision of KNUST was to be the Ghanaian equivalent of MIT. We need to go back there. And beyond it all, the commitment that we have to make to get away from the raw material exporting economy to an industrial value-adding economy. That automatically raises the profile of science and technology in our country and the need for us to have the institutions that can support them. So we're talking about a holistic presentation of a solution involving training, involving the development.
Thank you. Let me go to the President. Mr. President, 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Nobody doubts what the role of science and technology is in development. If you look at every single case of countries that have moved to the next level, it has been on the wings of science and technology. And so it means the investments that we do in this area are crucial to our forward movement. Let me start. First, there was a confusion as to where to put the overall oversight of science and technology. And under the previous administration, I remember at one time it was under education, at another time it was under some other ministry, and so you couldn't really, tell where it belonged. Under our government, we found it a permanent home, and as long as I remain president, it will remain in that home, and that is the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. I think there's a natural linkage between, those areas, and it makes it better able to be supervised. And then apart from that, we had started the implementation of a science and technology policy, which was abandoned after 2000. We came and re-engaged with the science and technology policy and have passed it and are implementing it. Out of that flows several interventions, which again, the question is, what will you do? And I'll say we are doing, in rolling out various interventions to promote science and technology. One of them has been a long-standing one, which was introduced by the first NDC government, the previous NDC government, the PNDC, which is the Science, Technology and Mathematics Clinics for Girls. And that clinic has been phenomenal in terms of encouraging girls to go for subjects that previously you find that they had an aversion for. Many more girls are going into science, technology, and mathematics because of that clinic, and we have continued it for them, and I think that is a good policy. Aside from that, flowing out of the policy again, we held the first ever Ghana Science Congress, and I think scientists and technologists were all very happy about this. There were exhibitions, they showed their products and all that, and we selected the Scientist of the Year, and he was giving a car, and I think that has been motivational for people in that sector, and we'll continue to do that. One of our flagship programs has been the Master's Program, which gives scholarships to students who are willing to study science, technology, and mathematics. We know that a lot of our students go for the softer subjects in humanities, and so the Master's Program has given out 5,000 scholarships to young people to study science and technology. And in the term of office that is coming up for me, I'm going to increase that to 10,000 scholarships for students who are willing to go into the area of science, technology, and mathematics, especially for girls. And so we're going to do that. Aside from that, we've started the local assembly of laptops, and we're going to expand it. We're also distributing laptops, 66,000 distributed already, and under the next term of government, I have said in our manifesto, we'll distribute 400,000 laptops to students across the country.
Okay, Dr. Sakara, 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. The science and technology gap is directly reflected in the poverty gap. If we do not have science and technology driving the economy, then you will find that we are not able to close the income generation and the other measures that we need to take to improve people's lives. Therefore, we need a broad spectrum of interventions from education to investment in industry, as well as R&D, research and development. What we would do in the education section is ensure that we give the right emphasis to technical and vocational training and give it the pride that it deserves, because it is looked down on in our communities. Therefore, when people are not able to pass the BECE exam, we have said as part of our free education policy that we will establish district opportunity industrialization centers where they can improve their aptitudes in the technical areas whilst continuing with reading, writing, and arithmetic. So by the time they're 18 or pass out of that school, they have the same level of proficiency as people who have gone to secondary school. That, we believe, is the first step to promoting science and technology. The second thing is to make our polytechnics more robust by ensuring that you can graduate from those OICs into polytechnics to do community college degrees in technical areas. Lastly, we will also ensure that the appropriate training of graduates themselves is situated within industrial research and development. To move the ideas from the shelf to the factories, we will establish a 10 million CD research and development fund for innovations. That will ensure that all the innovations we have stacked up in CSIR don't just stay on the shelves, but we have a way of conveying them into industry. Ultimately, knowledge is demand-driven. If we are not making direct investments to grow industries in strategic areas where we have resources and comparative advantage, agriculture, the petroleum industry, fertilizer industry, also the light manufacturing, we will not be having the demand pull to bring knowledge and technology into the commercial sector. Therefore, we must make those investments as well as ensure that we continue a steady stream of people who can graduate from one level to the other. For us to be able to maintain those investments, we need to negotiate for markets for our light industry with people who we are dealing with in resources. Thank you.
Thank you also very much. Now we move to the final question on natural resources. And I begin with the NPP, Nana Akufo-Addo. Generally speaking, our discussions on and our plans regarding natural resources leave out the marine resources. We would like to hear from you your ideas on how to expand our contributions from this sector, that is our waters, the sea, and so on, to our national life.
Madam, thank you so much. First of all, we have to recognize that those who are in our marine industry, we're talking essentially about the fishing community, represent something like 2 million Ghanaians. We're talking about virtually 10% of our nation which is engaged in fishing activities of one sort or another. So it's a very large constituency and a very large community that we're talking about. There's certain things that clearly we need to do. One, to make sure that we conserve our marine resources. The unbridled industrial exploitation of our seas is a matter that is going to come to haunt us unless we're prepared to make the courageous and principled decisions that we know to ban large-scale industrial exploitation of our seas. It's a difficult decision, but it's a decision that other countries have made, and they have benefited from the decision. They have allowed the marine stock to rejuvenate, revive, and grow. We need to do that. Secondly, those involved in the industry, a great deal of capacity building is necessary for them. You look at the old canoes that the majority of our fishing folk are using. In today's world, fiberglass and the rest, they have no access to it. A conscious effort has to be made to enhance the capacity of our fishing communities to be able to fish as modern fishing people do. So these are immediately matters that we have to situate at the very center of our planning and of our strategy for development. Thirdly, the various problems that this community has had, access to pre-mixed fuel, capacity to buy, outboard motors. These are matters that really by now we should have found solutions for. I am strongly of the view that we have to take politics and politicians out of matters affecting the fishing industry. Yes, they're an important community, but they're an important community for the development of our nation, not necessarily for the fortunes of any particular political party. It isn't right that political parties, chairmen of political parties, are the ones responsible for distributing pre-mixed fuel. Those are not things that advance. We have to take politics out of it and allow the fishing authorities and communities to be able to handle these matters themselves.
Thank you very much. We move to the NDC.
Thank you very much. Again, here I'll say we're doing a lot to improve our marine resources. The major problem with our marine resources has been overfishing and use of illegal methods. And that has emanated from our inability to police our waters. But let me also qualify that we can't do this in isolation as a country because we share the Gulf of Guinea with our neighbors. However, we protect our little corner of the Gulf of Guinea. If overfishing and poaching and illegal methods is allowed in other countries, then it won't mean much for us. But we'll do as much as we can in our little corner and persuade our neighbors to join us in doing so. So one of the things we've done is to equip the Navy. We came into government in a situation where the Navy had 2 old seagoing boats that took 48 hours to reach the end of our maritime boundary. We have, over the last 4 years, provided the Navy 7 brand new boats to increase their capacity to be able to police our waters. This has